You and I know the Toyota 2JZ GTE as one of the most legendary tuner engines of all time, powering one of the most iconic cars of all time, the MK4 Toyota Supra. But what if I told you that the best Supra ever built doesn't even have a 2JZ engine, but rather a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine? It sounds kind of crazy, but it's true, and in this video I'm going to explain why. Now, for those who don't know, Toyota has a long history of building inline-6 engines that goes way past the 2JZ. If we rewind the clock to 1935, we'll find the Toyota Type A engine, which was Toyota's first ever inline-6 engine, but it wasn't particularly exciting in terms of power at just 61 horsepower from its 3.4 liters of displacement. And then in 1965, they introduced the all-new M engine, which was a little bit more exciting at 123 horsepower from its 2 liters of displacement. And really, this was Toyota's first ever performance-oriented inline-6 engine. If we jump ahead to the 1980s, we'll find the 7M GTE, which is Toyota's first turbocharged inline-6 engine, and really that's the engine that laid the groundwork that became the 1JZ and then later on the 2JZ. And the 2JZ GTE in particular is one of the most known and praised engines of all time. Part of that is because of its extreme versatility in the context of aftermarket performance, but also because it powered what ultimately became the biggest fanboy car ever, the MK4 Supra. The 2JZ is truly on a nearly untouchable pedestal, and whether or not it actually deserves that hype and praise is a topic in and of itself, but there is no denying that 2J is a very good performance engine and arguably one of the best ever. If you look around on the internet, it's not hard to find examples of 2Js being swapped into practically everything from Miatas to professional Formula Drift race cars. And on the extreme performance side, there's loads of examples of these engines making well over 1,000 horsepower, and some as high as nearly 4,000 horsepower. That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, that's the power of nearly 10 C5 Z06s. That just blows my mind. Now that takes us to this car here, the Castrol Tom Supra GT, one of the most iconic race cars of all time. Now you might recognize it as a car featured in the Gran Turismo racing games, but it's a lot more than just a video game car. It's quite literally one of the most important race cars of all time. But the thing is, it doesn't have a 2JZ engine. So why did Toyota decide not to use their holy grail of engine engineering and what became one of the best race cars of all time? Well, the Tom Supra was part of the Japanese Grand Touring Car Racing Series, which was a popular racing series found in Japan that ultimately ended up becoming the GT500 Racing Series, which itself is one of the most legendary racing series of all time. Back to the Super GT series though. Nissan had been dominating the Japanese Touring Car Championship in the early 1990s, taking home the championship in 1990, 1991, 1992, and 1993. And on top of that, the R32 GTR took home the overall victory in the Spa 24-hour race of 1991 and the Australian Touring Car Championship. Nissan was absolutely dominating motorsports in the early 1990s, to put it lightly. It really wasn't even close, and they were practically winning everything. Keep in mind, 1994 was the very first year for the all-new Japanese Grand Touring Car Championship, and that was all Toyota needed to reignite the rivalry with Nissan. Now, an important thing to note here in these early racing series is that the rules were pretty open and loose, allowing for a fair bit of flexibility for manufacturers to develop their race cars. And one of the most important rules in this racing series is that a manufacturer's race car was allowed the use of any engine, as long as it was in the original manufacturer's range of engines. For Toyota, that meant that they could use any production engine that they had ever built up until that point. They could use any of them, giving them a lot of flexibility and versatility in choosing what they wanted to power their race car. But ultimately, they decided on using the 3S GT engine, which is a little 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine based on their existing 3S GTE engine. Still though, why not use the larger 2JZ engine? Why would you use a smaller 2-liter engine when you have the existing 2J that's a 3-liter, much bigger? There's no replacement for displacement, right? What the heck is going on here? And you'd be right to think that, especially when you consider that Nissan, arguably their biggest rival and the company that had been absolutely dominating motorsports with its GTR and its venerable RB26 DETT engine, to which the 2JZ was pretty much a direct competitor, giving Toyota even more reason to use the 2JZ and prove it was a truly superior engine to the RB26, both in terms of road use and racing use. So why on earth did they use the 3S GTE instead of the 2JZ? I mean, the 3S GTE is a little boring 2-liter that was used in cars like the Celica and the MR2. It's truly nothing special. But Toyota had actually already used this engine in racing before, and what I'm talking about is the 503E, which is a modified version of the 3S GTE that Toyota had used in Group C rally racing, as well as other applications. And in this form, they had already pushed this engine to over 800 horsepower reliably. That means that they had an engine ready to go. They had a 3S GTE that had already been modified for racing. All they had to do was take it and plop it into their Supra, and it was ready to go. Still, the question remains though, why this 2-liter engine and not the 3-liter 2JZ? Well, unknown to many of the Supra fanboys out there on the internet, there is a lot more to a car than seeing who can make the most peak power while also making their car as undrivable as possible. I hate to break it to you, but there's a lot more to life than just roll racing. Seriously though, the biggest issue with using the 2JZ GTE in a race car application is weight and size. You see, the 2JZ is a fairly long and pretty heavy engine, and there's really no easy way to fix that, at least not affordably. For reference, a bone stock twin-turbo Mark IV Supra comes in around 3,200 to roughly 3,500 pounds, depending on the trim and the options. On the other hand, the Tom Supra comes in at just 2,425 pounds. Now obviously they've removed all the creature comforts considering it's a race car, not a road car, but still that highlights just how big the weight difference was between a stock Supra and the Tom Supra race car. A better comparison would be to look at the weight of the individual engines, where the 2JZ GTE comes in around 600 pounds without the transmission, and the 3S GTE comes in around 400 pounds with the transmission. So as you can see, the weight difference between a 2J and a 3S GTE is pretty massive. We're talking about a couple hundred pounds of weight difference just in that alone. And using a heavy engine in a racing application can cause some serious issues, most notably having a huge effect on the vehicle's weight distribution from front to back. So by using a smaller 4-cylinder engine, they're able to take hundreds of pounds off the nose of the car and keep the engine further back in the engine bay, helping to give the car a much more balanced weight distribution. With a better weight balance comes much better handling characteristics, and on top of that, much better tire wear. And you have to remember, this car was built to win races. It was built to turn. That means that the less tire wear you have, the less pit stops you have to make, and the further ahead you can get of your competition. Unfortunately though, Toyota's unique approach to using a smaller and lighter engine didn't exactly translate to motorsports dominance, although they found quite a bit of success with it. In 1995, they had their very first Japanese Grand Touring Car Championship win at Sendai Highland Raceway. Then they got their second win at Sportsland Sugo, but unfortunately those wins weren't enough to score the championship that year. Fast forwarding to 1997, the Calisonic GTR that had been dominating motorsports pulled out and was replaced by a new team to help continue Nissan's run. But Toyota planned to put an end to it, and they added another Supra to their roster. And it was this 1997 season that finally saw the Supra crowned as the Japanese Grand Touring Car Champion, with the first ever tiebreaker for the Drivers' Championships that was between the Tom Supra and the Sard Supra. Toyota was so obsessed with beating Nissan in this form of motorsports that they effectively ended up just competing with themselves. But hey, it worked. Just enough to piss off Nissan, who came back the very next year and once again dominated with a brand new GTR. And well, that 1998 year didn't go so well for Toyota. In fact, they didn't win a single race that year. And then in the following year of 1999, Nissan dominated once again. And by 2001, Castrol and Toyota had parted ways. But in the end, the Supra finished its career with 4 total championships and even continued racing after Toyota ended production of the Mark IV Supra in 2002. Now today, you can find this Tom's Castrol Supra in a handful of different racing games, most notably the Gran Turismo series. And I don't know about you, but I had a ton of fun driving this car, both in GT4 and in GT5. Of course, driving it in a video game is nothing like driving it in real life, but considering I'm too poor to become a race car driver, I'm gonna guess that you are too, so that's probably about as close as we're gonna get. So while the 2JZ is an amazing engine that has quite literally changed the automotive aftermarket forever, it just wasn't the right engine for the job when it came to powering the best Supra ever. Now, a question I have seen floating around on the internet before is if the Tom Supra could have used a 2JZ engine and saw the same success that it had with the 3S GTE, and the answer is yes, it's definitely possible. Nissan had loads of success using the RB26 in their GTR, which dominated racing. Nissan didn't see a need to switch to a smaller and lighter 4-cylinder engine, and frankly, Toyota could have done the same. Would a 2JZ powered Tom Supra have as much success as the real one did? Maybe, maybe not. That's something that we'll never get to know unless one of you out there invents a time machine. Anyways, that's all I've got for you guys today. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to smash the thumbs up button, drop a comment down below if you think I forgot anything or anything that you want to add. Be sure to get subscribed so you don't miss out on future videos. Check out some of the other stuff on the channel. Follow us on social media. We post a lot on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and just about everywhere. And I'll see you guys in the next one.